The Biden administration is laying out its plan for combating wildfires. This year is gearing up to be a severe season as western states deal with record high temperatures and a historic drought. Skyler Henry has the latest from the White House.
Firefighters worked through the night, struggling to contain the lava fire on Mount Shasta in California. It exploded to more than 13,000 acres Tuesday, forcing evacuations. So far, wildfires have already burned more than 1.4 million acres this year, and the season is just getting started.
The threat of western wildfires this year is as severe as it's ever been.
President Biden was joined virtually by governors of western states during a cabinet meeting Wednesday to discuss the dangers wildfires pose this year. The president wants to be able to surge firefighting capacity, starting with a $2 raise for federal firefighters so they can earn $15 an hour. He's also extending the seasonal hiring of firefighters and training for federal employees and military personnel to help fight fires.
Music to my ears. We got to pay our firefighters federally more because we don't have enough firefighters, period, full stop.
The Biden administration says climate change is what's driving up record hot temperatures and creating drought conditions, which lead to those wildfires.
We're seeing wildfires of greater intensity that move with more speed, and last well beyond traditional months.
Our states are truly on the front lines when it comes to drought, fires, and our rapidly changing climate.
President Biden is calling on Congress to include money to combat climate change in the upcoming budget bill. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
For the latest happenings at the White House, I want to bring in Sean Sullivan. He is a CBSN political contributor and White House reporter for the Washington Post. He joins me now for more. Hey, Sean, the White House says that these initiatives are just short-term solutions to help support local firefighters. What's the administration's plan to solve this problem in the longer term?
Well, I think right now, the message that they were trying to send is, look, we're heading into the heart of wildfire season. We're heading into the summer months. It's the hottest time of the year. It's the driest time of the year. And I think they want to show the public that they're not taking this lightly, that they're doing things and taking the steps that many people expect to address this. And we'll see in the coming months how severe these fires end up being. There's a lot of concern that it is going to be a particularly devastating season, and then we'll see what the administration does in the long run in terms of freeing up more federal money, in terms of Biden potentially visiting some of these places. I think there are some unknowns right now about kind of what they do in the long term, but I think the message they tried to send today is, look, here are some specific actions that we're taking, including raising pay or ensuring at least that federal firefighters are making no less than $15 an hour. Of course, many of them are making more than that. And the president also today talked about using technology to track these wildfires in their earlier stages, to track these events, things like lightning strikes that cause these initial fires, which start sometimes very small and then become very, very large and hard to contain. And the president also talked about, devoting federal money to the places that are affected by these fires, the places that need it. So I think this administration is trying to send this message that, look, we're taking sort of a multifaceted approach, but the reality is we don't know how destructive this season is going to be yet. If it is destructive, I think a lot of people are going to look to the White House, look to the administration and say, how are you doing this? It might even prompt questions that they should have done more. But I think right now they're trying to send a message of, look, this is what we're doing at this time. We're trying to get ahead of this, basically.
And Sean, President Biden's also discussing climate change and the link to wildfires and the historic heat wave. How is the Biden administration committed to fighting this issue?
Well, in general, the Biden administration has talked frequently about climate change. They understand that this is a top priority in the Democratic Party right now. This is something that a lot of activists feel strongly about, something that a lot of lawmakers, a lot of their allies on Capitol Hill feel strongly about. And it's created a debate right now in the Democratic Party about what the party ought to do. Most recently, the Biden administration says, look, we are focused on this big infrastructure bill that we want to pass. It includes a lot of money for roads, bridges, other sort of basic construction projects, but also they are stressing the fact that this bill would invest in the clean energy economy. They talk a lot about electric vehicle charging stations. That's a big part of this bipartisan compromise that they struck with Republicans. But all that said, this package, this proposal that the president has put forward, has really concerned a lot of climate activists who say this doesn't go far enough. This was a big issue in the campaign. We said this was a big issue. You said you would have our back on this. And we want to see more than what you've presented. So we're starting to see some divisions in the Democratic Party right now. There are activists, lawmakers, and others who just, flatly say that this president, this White House, is not committed enough to tackling climate change. They've not put forward proposals that they feel are robust enough and forceful enough.
Yeah, and Sean, as you mentioned, some progressive Democrats have been criticizing the president's recent infrastructure deal, not merely for climate change, but other issues as well. And Democrats are moving forward on their own larger bill that includes more of their priorities like child care and education, as well as climate change. They want to use the budget reconciliation process to get it done. Is it likely that we're going to see this get enough support among lawmakers to actually pass?
Well, we'll see, Lana, and really it comes down to a couple of moderates. Will the Democrats be able to get Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, two centrist Democrats who have run as moderates, who have presented themselves as centrists? Will they be able to get them on board? I think Democrats are pretty confident that they ultimately will. But right now we're seeing a lot of uncertainty about the future of this entire negotiation, because on one hand, the president has said, look, we struck a deal with Republicans. We want to move forward on this infrastructure package. And this is mainly physical infrastructure, as we talked about, roads, bridges, other projects. But then there's this whole other bill, as you mentioned, Lana, that Democrats want to pass along party lines. The reality is this is not something that is going to win Republican support. And a lot of liberal Democrats are saying, well, hold on a second. If we're going to move forward on that other bill that the Republicans like, you've got to give us assurances that we're also going to pass this bill that we think is a priority. And then you also see the flip side of that, right? You see Republicans saying, well, hold on, if this is a situation where we're only going to pass these things together, we're not interested in that other bill. We don't want to go along with you just so you can pass this whole thing. So it's a really, really fine line that President Biden is trying to walk right now. How does he keep liberal Democrats on board? And how does he also keep moderates and Republicans on board? Because their priorities are wildly, wildly different right now. And the whole thing could fall apart if you lose even a little bit of support on one side or the other. That's the reality of a 50-50 Senate and a House that is nearly evenly divided. So there's no real margin for Biden to make mistakes here in terms of alienating lawmakers. Yeah. It's going to be a really, really challenging summer for him on this front.
And we saw some of those missteps earlier in the president's attempts to recover from that. Sean, before I let you go, I just want to ask you, because President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are planning to travel to Florida Thursday to visit the site of the collapsed building. Is there anything more that you can tell us about their trip?
Well, what we do know is that they're going to be visiting, talking with first responders, emergency personnel, local officials. The White House has also said that they're going to be talking with some of the families that have been affected by this tragedy. But we don't know exactly what Biden is going to do or specifically say yet. I asked White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki today whether the president would be meeting with Governor DeSantis, the Republican governor of Florida. She didn't have an answer for that question. So there are some question marks about what Biden's going to do. Is he actually going to physically go to the site of this condominium collapse, or is he not going to do that? A lot of questions about what this is going to look like. But what we do know is that this president has made empathy and overcoming grief, overcoming tragedy, a big part of his political identity. He's talked openly about the tragedies that he's had to deal with in his own personal life, the death of his son, Beau, the death of his first wife and young daughter. And so I think we can expect Biden to sort of make that pitch that we've seen from him in the past, that he's sort of this empathizer and this empathizer-in-chief, consoler-in-chief. That is something that I think his aides see as one of his strengths, something that they think can appeal to people politically. So this could be a pretty emotional trip for the president and people around him. It could be as much an emotional trip as it is one of policy and trying to figure out what's happening on the ground.
Sean Sullivan, thank you.
Thanks.